to all my beautiful humans out there. I am Singular Everything, back with another video. We got a really special video today because today we're talking about LSD and specifically how to prepare for your first time using it. So, without further ado, let's get the vibration to my nation going up. Look at that, baby. Look at that. Safe travels. Oh man, LSD. First time doing LSD. Where do I begin? So first of all, with all psychedelics in general, but specifically with LSD, it's very important that you look at your family history of mental illness, and if you see a family history of schizophrenia or psychosis, any psychotic disorders, you need to stay away from psychedelics, especially LSD. And the same can be said if you're on antidepressants or any medication at all for your brain. You need to consult with a doctor, a legal providing physician, because I am just a guy. You know, I don't know shit. So don't be doing psychedelics if you're taking SSRIs, because you might potentially get serotonin syndrome and die. Because both psychedelics and SSRIs play on your serotonin receptors, and the combination can cause death. And that's not cool, man, because psychedelics are healing. You're not supposed to die. Only your ego is supposed to die. Your physical body is supposed to be okay. So, once you learn about your history, your family history, then it's time, maybe do a little research on LSD. Read about Albert Hoffman, read about the origin story, Bicycle Day, all that fun stuff. Maybe read about the psychedelic revolution of the 60s, the Beatles, Pink Floyd, hippies, all that cool shit. Learn about the war on drugs. This isn't mandatory, but this definitely will help build a stronger connection to acid for you. And then also, look into the effects of LSD. Like, what is it that LSD is going to do for me? Like, read trip reports from other people who have already done it. And then ask yourself, is this something that I want to experience? Does this sound beneficial to me? Ask yourself those questions after doing research. And if it does seem like something that you want to do, then let's go on to step number 2, which is going to be preparing for the actual trip. Now, the whole prep work of LSD can make or break a great trip. Sure, you can spontaneously drop acid and probably have a good time. But since this is the first time you're doing it, and if this isn't the first time you're doing acid, this video is intended for people who have never tried it before, so just bear with me. But the first time you do LSD, it's really important to set yourself up for great success in as many ways as possible. So first of all, the thing that I'm going to recommend the most is getting your LSD from a safe source. Okay, you need to get your LSD from somebody that you trust. Okay, you don't just go on the streets asking for acid and just take whatever someone gives you. No, get it from a good source, and then take it home and buy a testing kit on the internet and test it to make sure that it's actually LSD. This is really important because LSD is not something that you visually see. You know, it could be any other research chemical being sold off as acid. And just one example I'm going to give you, there's a research chemical called N-bomb, and it's supposed to be a hellish experience. And a lot of times, well, in the past, people have sold it off as LSD. So you don't want to be a victim of N-bomb. So make sure you test any shit that you get. Let's say you get some shit, you get 2 tabs, you know, take one of them and test it. You know, I'm serious, test your shit. And do that for all drugs, you know, not just LSD. But yeah, okay, so once you got good shit, and you know, you're ready to go, you know, find out the dosing, you know, or whatever the dealer tells you the dosing is. Usually a tab is between 100 to 200 micrograms. That's standard. That's not always true. It could be more, it could be less. But just ask the person you buy it from, and then whatever they tell you, you know, I guess you could just trust them. This is the problem with drugs being illegal. You know, you just gotta trust people like that. But you know, then I would recommend you should do, for your first time, you should do anywhere between 100 to maybe 150 micrograms. So that usually equates to about 1 tab. So, you know, set an intention to do 1 tab. Okay, so now that you got your stuff, you've decided you want to try acid, now it's time to actually prepare for the experience. So the first thing that I'm going to recommend is time. You're going to want to have a set block of time where you don't have any responsibilities, right? I would recommend at least 48 hours from the time that you drop the acid, take the acid, for people that don't know the lingo. 48 hours from the time that you take the acid, you want to have your schedule completely freed up. You don't want to be having responsibilities, right? You don't want to have to go into work. You don't want to have to pick up your brother from the airport. You don't want to have to, you know, do anything that could potentially throw you off. You want to give yourself time to dedicate to the experience. And acid only lasts about 12 hours. But the reason I recommend you dedicate at least 48 hours is because if at any point during the trip you start to feel overwhelmed, it'll be very comforting knowing all the time that you saved yourself to really like ground yourself back into reality and come back to your ego so you can then take on your life's responsibilities, right? It's a peace of mind thing. And if there's one thing that I've learned in life, it's that a peace of mind is the most valuable thing in this existence. It truly is. So once you have a time set for when you're going to actually take the acid, then it's all about preparing yourself for the trip beyond time. So ask yourself a couple things like, are you going to have things to do on the trip, right? And I would recommend, first of all, make sure you have a way to listen to music, right? Whether it's a pair of headphones, a nice pair of speakers, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then maybe have your phone with a streaming service like Spotify or Apple Music. Maybe you could have records or CDs, it doesn't matter. Just make sure that you have a way to listen to music, right? Because music on LSD is beautiful, okay? And I'll give recommendations for music at the end once I'm wrapping it up. So I would definitely make sure that I have music ready. And then also just make sure you have like other forms of art to express yourself through. So make sure, you know, you have ways to draw, maybe paint, make music, make a video, journal. These are all just ideas. You don't have to have them all. Whatever you like to create, I would recommend that you have readily available, right? So you have something to do during the trip. Because if at any point during the trip you start to sit there and you're just like, oh, I don't know what to do, you can always do something like that, and you're going to be very grateful while you're tripping that you gave yourself an opportunity to do something like that, right? You set yourself up for success, okay? And while you're tripping, you're probably not going to be able to go to the store to get supplies, so make sure you get all the supplies you're going to need. And then another thing that I would prepare is just make sure that you have a safe and comfortable setting, right? So just make sure that you have somewhere safe you could be, where nobody's going to bother you. You know, no landlord's going to come knocking on the door and barging in. You know, nobody's going to kick you out. Like somewhere that you can be safe and secure at for the duration of your experience. Because there's nothing worse than tripping 1 second and then having somebody come along and kill your vibe. So you need to find somewhere safe to be, right? And you know, whether or not that's in your apartment, you know, you just want to have like a home base to be able to be comfortable in and get comfortable at. During the trip, you know, you're allowed to leave. You know, if you're doing it in your apartment, maybe you could go on a walk at some point. That's totally okay. But just make sure that you have that grounding spot where you can just be yourself and be comfortable and not have to worry about the world around you, and just be as comfortable as you need to be. And then I would also recommend maybe finding a trip sitter for your first time. And if you don't necessarily want to have somebody around with you, maybe it's just as simple as having somebody on speed dial who you know you can call if you ever need somebody to like come over and help you, or just talk on the phone at any point during the trip. You know, you could also have somebody there with you. That's cool too. You want to make sure that this person is very special, right? You don't just want any average Joe. You want to make sure that this person can help you and cares about you and has empathy and love for you. Because one of the worst things that can happen on LSD is having somebody with bad energy around. So you want to get a very pure person who's a good expression of love and cares about you and everyone. You know, maybe somebody who's done it in the past so that they have the empathy of a psychedelic trip and they know the intensity of it, right? And then as far as all that stuff goes, I would also add the idea of food. So first of all, you're going to want to make sure that you have plenty of water, right? And I personally would recommend that you don't. You know, you could use water bottles, but if you're on LSD, like a water bottle might kind of like gross you out a bit. Because when you're on LSD, you know, you might start thinking about how plastic hurts the environment or something. That's like how your brain starts to work on LSD. So maybe invest in a water filter. Just make sure that you have plenty of water to drink, because water is going to be a good way to keep you grounded, and it's really important to stay hydrated, right? And then I would also recommend you have plenty of fruit to eat, because when you're on LSD, fruit is really one of the only things that you're going to be able to chow down on. It's very difficult to eat a steak, for example, or anything heavy on LSD. So I'd recommend get some grapes, strawberries, blueberries, bananas, pineapple, mangoes, oranges, apples, you know, any fruit that you can think of. Just go to the store and just load up on all the fruit. And watermelon, so good on acid. Oh my god, so good. Pineapple's my favorite fruit. But make sure that you got that. So once you got all your supplies ready, and it's the day of the trip, before you trip, I personally like to eat a substantial meal before I trip. I usually like to consume a big breakfast of some kind, you know, something that's going to keep me energized for the trip. Because like I said, you don't want to eat. So before I even think about dropping, I try to consume about 1,000 calories, right? Eggs, toast, avocado, banana, hash browns. You know, just a solid 1,000 calories in a solid meal. Plenty of water. Hold up. Plenty of water. And then, once you got all that stuff set up, you're ready to drop. So do the acid, put on your tongue, do your thing, and then happy tripping. And then just know that you prepared yourself for everything. You did the research on LSD, you know what to expect, you know the history of the drug, you know you've read other trip reports, you have somewhat of an idea of what to expect. You got music to listen to, you got art to make, you got a safe place to be, you got a trip sitter on speed dial, you ate a meal, you got plenty of water, you got fruit, you're ready to go. You're ready to go. Okay? So if you do all that prep work, you should have a great time. And then something I want to add, if at any point during the trip you start to freak out, hey, you know, maybe you could watch this video. But something that's really important to keep in mind is the trip will end and you just took a drug, you know, and tripping is just a bodily response to processing the drug. So that's what happens when you take a drug, especially LSD, specifically LSD. You know, you start to trip. But that's just your body processing it and getting rid of it and flushing it out of your system. So you know, you just need to remember that and you'll be okay. And honestly, if you took a drug and your body didn't process it and you didn't get high, I would be more concerned than if I did get high, because that means that there's something wrong with your body's ability to process. So the fact that you got high on the drug is actually a good sign. And that's true for all psychedelics. Like, your body will flush it out. LSD has an extremely quick half time. Your body's very good at getting it out of your system and fully processing it. So don't freak out thinking that you're in like a loop or anything. And really, like, you're gonna be okay no matter what. And hey, if push comes to shove you, just put on something like this. .432 hertz, like, you can't go wrong with this music. Just lay back, meditate. If you start overthinking, you know, just simplify your surroundings. Put on some high vibes. Don't, you know, I wouldn't be on my phone at all when I'm taking LSD. I would just, like, only use my phone for music if I'm gonna use it. I wouldn't go on the internet. I wouldn't be watching YouTube videos. You know, I wouldn't be on social media. You want to be very careful with what you're consuming and just stick to, you know, creating and very simple, relaxing things, because it's really easy to get sucked down rabbit holes on LSD, right? And then one last thing I want to add is cannabis on LSD. I personally would not recommend it your first time. For those that know, when you combine LSD and cannabis, it completely alters the high. It's a completely different experience, and it's one that I don't think many people would really be able to handle. You know, if you do end up smoking on LSD and you do start to feel overwhelmed, that's when I would suggest, you know, laying back and just meditating and not trying to hold on to anything. Just completely let go to the experience, right? And just let go. Stop trying to control your ego. Just let go, and everything's going to be okay. So, with all that being said, you know, I hope you guys have great trips. And then a couple music suggestions I have for you. So, you know, of course, we got Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, great album to listen to while tripping. Nirvana, Nevermind, personally my favorite album. Great album to listen to while on LSD. The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper, beautiful. If you're into intense music and experimental, louder music, you could try checking out Death Grips, No Love, Deep Web. That's a great, I love that song, our album. Excuse me. You could listen to SingularEVERYTHING. I do make music for the psychedelic experience. And then, of course, I would always just recommend like this. Stuff like this. Just calming frequencies. So, best of luck to you all. I love you all. Let's end it with this. Oh, and one more thing. If you are freaking out on LSD, you should try reading the Bhagavad Gita. Because the Bhagavad Gita is my favorite book. And it's such a good representation of oneness, collective consciousness, all that high vibe stuff. So I think that book could help calm you down if you ever do find yourself freaking out. Because when you're on LSD, you're going to realize that it's all one. So with all that being said, I am singularEVERYTHING. Thank you for watching. Namaste. And I love you all. Peace, love, infinite. It's all one. It's all love. I love you all. Safe travels.